Hello again, everyone. Welcome to Washington Gun Law TV. I'm Washington Gun Law President William Kirk. Thanks for joining us. Coming to you from Washington's premier indoor shooting facility. Of course, that is Security Gun Club right here in Woodinville, Washington. And we're going to follow up with another video in a series of videos where we talk about what your legal rights are as it relates to self-defense if, God forbid, you are found in certain situations. Now, we did this video which talks about the rather unlikely occurrence that you would accidentally drive into a protest and have people pounding on your car. Not like that would ever happen, right? And then, of course, we had to follow it up because we had to do further explanation because for some reason it just continued to happen. Now, recently we did this video right here, which is about what happens if law enforcement is unlawfully shooting upon you. Not like that would ever happen. And one of the more common questions I got in response to this, and people wanted to know the answer, is what we're going to talk about today. So today we're going to slow it down. We're going to geek out on the law a little bit. So let's spend a few minutes and let's talk about, do you have the right to shoot a home intruder? You know, I bet you wish you could go and do this every day, but you don't, do you? And I imagine you wish your groups looked a lot like this, but they don't, do they? No, instead, they have a tendency to look a little bit more like this. Plus, you might have noticed that this stuff ain't very cheap anymore. Or, just hear me out, you can use your Mantis X10 Elite training system like I do. Listen, this thing is way too easy to use. Step 1, install the Mantis training app to your smartphone. Step 2, install the Mantis X10 Elite training system to your firearm. It's as simple as this. Step 3, open up the training app, select your program, and away you go. Listen, you can practice in the comfort of your own home. This app will store all the data. It will tell you what you're doing wrong, what you're doing right. It will tell you what you're improving on and what you need to work on. The best part is, all you need is your firearm and the Mantis X10. You don't need any ammunition, and you don't need any expensive membership to a range or a gun club. And right now, if you want to check this revolutionary system out, all you got to do is click on that link right up there. For more information, visit our good friends at mantisx.com. Okay, here's what we're talking about today. We are talking about the scenario, which is, what kind of force can you use if you encounter a home intruder inside of your home? Now, we're going to start with a couple little caveats because that's what we have to do. So these are our disclaimers. Okay, number 1, I encourage everyone to talk to local counsel because, yes, there are nuances to self-defense laws on a state level. There are even sometimes nuances to self-defense laws on a more localized level. You need to consult with local counsel. Number 2, you will notice that the title of this video is, do you have the right to shoot a home intruder? It is not called, should I shoot a home intruder? I will be teaching you about what you have the right to do, but whether or not that equates to doing the right thing, that is based on a case-by-case basis, and I do believe that you should consult with people who are far more proficient in training you in tactical things so you can understand the complex equation that we are really talking about today. Okay, let's start with our general rules of self-defense. Now, again, these could be a little bit nuanced depending on your local jurisdiction, but in general, we have the right to use force to defend ourselves or others in our presence or property, so long as the force we use is 1, necessary, 2, reasonable, both objectively and subjectively, and 3, proportional. Lethal force in self-defense, however, may not be used unless we are in imminent threat of death or serious bodily injury. And if you take a look at the litany of case law from around the country, we will find out that there are really 4 instances in which people can lawfully use lethal force in self-defense. Number 1, they themselves, you yourself, are in imminent threat of death or serious bodily injury. Number 2, somebody else in your presence is in imminent threat of death or serious bodily injury. Number 3, you have a felony being committed upon your person. Or 4, there is a felony that is being committed inside your home. And then we also have to talk about duties to retreat, castle doctrine, stand your grounds. We're going to do a whole nother separate video where we'll really geek out on it. But basically, castle doctrine, stand your ground laws, no duty to retreat laws say that you, so long as you are lawfully in that location, are under no duty to retreat from unlawful force that is being threatened to use against you, and you have the right to stand your ground and defend yourself with whatever necessary, reasonable, and proportional force is legally permitted. Now, believe it or not, some states actually do create a duty to retreat. That is, individuals must actually try to avoid conflict before engaging in conflict. And those states include Connecticut, Delaware, Hawaii, Massachusetts, Maryland, Maine, Minnesota, Nebraska, New Jersey, New York, Rhode Island, and Wisconsin. But this is important. In none of those states is an individual under any duty to retreat from their own home. So there is no state in the United States currently that places a homeowner under duty to retreat from their own home. So with that in mind, do we have the right to shoot a home intruder? Well, if we go through our checklist, it is plausible that we are now in imminent threat of death or serious bodily injury. If there are other people living in the home, it is also equally possible that somebody else in your presence is also in imminent threat of death or serious bodily injury. I do believe that individuals who are willing to break into an occupied house are probably there for a lot worse reasons than just to steal the big screen TV. And so there is a high likelihood that a felony will be committed upon your person. But when we get to number 4, a felony being committed inside your home, folks, the minute this burglar comes through the window, that now is a residential burglary. That is a felony in all jurisdictions, and that provides you with the right to use lethal force. Now, remember, even though this provides you with the right to use lethal force, I am not advocating, nor am I saying that that means that lethal force should always be used in those circumstances. There are many other variables that go into calculating that equation. The other thing I want all of you to be aware of is this: the difference between a trespasser and a burglar. You see, if this is our imaginary home and we have our imaginary property right here, this person here is a trespasser, which means, are they committing a crime? Yes. In almost all jurisdictions, it is a misdemeanor, simple misdemeanor, something to that effect. Do you have the right to use reasonable force to remove them from your property? Yes, you do. But will you have the right to use lethal force to remove a trespasser from the property? In all likelihood, you do not, because when we go back to our checklist of the 4 things that do allow us to use lethal force, we do not see any one of those exist with a trespass occurring on the curtilage of our property. So for that reason, reasonable force could be used, but that reasonable force would never be tantamount to anything closely resembling lethal force. However, when that trespasser goes from your front yard or backyard and breaches the home itself, they are no longer a trespasser. They are now a burglar. That is now a felony, and in almost all jurisdictions, that will justify the use of lethal force to defend yourself and your family. So the bottom line is this: do you have the right to use lethal force against a home intruder? Yeah, the minute they actually become a home intruder, you do. But just because you have the right to do that, I am not saying that is the right thing to do in every situation. Listen, we will go ahead and link up some of the materials we relied upon in formulating this opinion so that you can geek out on it for yourself. If you got any other questions about this or anything else related to self-defense laws, you guys should know how to get a hold of Washington gun law by now. If you don't, that's okay. That information is also down there in the description box. And then let's everyone remember that part of being the lawful and responsible gun owner, like we talk about all the time here, is to know what the law is in every situation, how it applies to you in any instance that you may find yourself. Until next time, thanks for watching. Stay safe.